Matt Ketterman's.
Oh, here we go.
Welcome to R7C2L in Action. We're your hosts and the instructional technology specialists. Can you believe this is show number 4 for us? We're really excited here. Instructional technology specialists here in Lee Summit, Missouri. It's a kind of rainy day outside, but we're doing some fantastic stuff inside. As we look back at the spring, some of those things that happened in 2020, there was some weird stuff that happened. And we thought, hey, what things can we do to help our paras, to help our school staff, to help our teachers, to help our administrators to be ready for what's coming next? Who knows what that might be, but what things can we do to be ready? What things can we help with? We got a series of questions. We got all sorts of people asking this and that. And we've tried to prepare some things to help you be prepared and ready as we try to connect with our students this fall. My name is Jeff Novinsky. I'm joined here on screen with other technology specialists. There's Corey Bunker. There she is. And there is, what's his name? John Courtney. He's right here. And I'm also joined behind the scenes running the show this week. It's not Kyle Pace this time, but it is the Lee Summit's own from Longview Farm Elementary, the Teacher of the Year, not just for Lee Summit, not just the regional Kansas City Teacher of the Year, but also now in the running, I think, for the state of Missouri. What a big deal. This is Matt Ketterman. Yes. Get some rounds of applause. That's fantastic. He's joining us from behind the scenes. Thank you so much for your help today.
Thanks, Jeff. Today, we welcome our guests, Leslie Mott and Micah Fritz, two administrators here in the Lee Summit R7 School District. Leslie comes to us with an elementary and early childhood background and 20 plus years in education. She's been a teacher leader, a literacy coach, and now an administrator. Currently, she's in a position as assistant principal at Underwood Elementary here in Lee Summit. And then Micah, who has taught in quite a wide variety of grade levels, from kindergarten through 7th grade and sprinkled a few in between there. His experiences include classroom teacher focusing on the makerspace and skills builder kind of classes, as well as an instructional coach before he became an administrator. It's his second year here in Lee Summit, and we welcome him from Meadow Lane Elementary. So welcome to you both. Thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us here on YouTube Live. Just to kind of get us started off with our questions, and just kind of think through here, as administrators in Lee Summit R7, why do you think it's beneficial to possess that working knowledge of our learning management system, Schoology? Leslie, you want to start us off?
Well, sure, Corey. Just thinking about coming out to Lee Summit, you guys use the platform of Schoology, and from the district that I came from, we didn't utilize Schoology. And so I told myself year one, in order for me to be an effective instructional leader for our team, it's going to be important for me to learn and to understand the platform that is expected of our staff and our teams. And so for me, it's just about being that role model for our teams and for our students and for our staff, and then kind of letting them know that, hey, I'm a learner just like you.
Yeah, that hub concept of we're all using this one LMS, and for you to be the role model in that is so crucial. Micah, how about you? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I'll echo what Leslie has said as well. Is I came from a district that we did not have Schoology, so everything was brand new to me and still is brand new to me, a lot of pieces of it. Thankfully, Marie Klein is in our building and she knows a lot and is very open in sharing those pieces. Shelly Etherton shared a lot of information as well. So our 3rd grade team at Meadow Lane really utilized it. And so picking up on those pieces and just owning the part where I just said, I don't know a lot about this, emailing John and just saying, John, I don't even know how to get a video loaded, and just with humility saying that. For me as an instructional leader, I want my staff to feel comfortable and not knowing, and then not being okay with not knowing and then figuring it out as they go along. I think that really it empowered me for John to take me under just with silly questions and saying, I don't know what's going on, but then I felt empowered to then know and share that along with the staff versus saying, oh, I know what's going on, I'm going to act like it and fake it and get through there. I think there's a lot of humility that comes with that, but then a lot of empowerment once you do figure it out. So Leslie probably knows a lot more than I do about it. So
Oh, you know what, Mike, I'm glad you said that. But you're right. It is okay for us to say that we're not as tech savvy as the experts are. John, you're my number one go-to because you're my person. But you mentioned your third grade team. I have some team members within my building that are way more savvy than I am. And when John's not available, I go to them as well.
Yeah.
Well, since John's getting all the love here, I guess we should point out he is assigned to both of your buildings.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
I'm no dummy, Corey.
Right, he set himself up.
Now, I'll also highlight, Jeff and Corey and our retiree, Julie Jensen, had buildings where that's our job, is to help set people up for success using technology. And so thank you guys for the props, but it's really a team effort. And I appreciate you giving some of that love to your team as well. Marie is a tech rep there at Meadow Lane, and we had a couple tech reps on to discuss being connected with colleagues last week. I guess I'll transition here. I just want to welcome you guys to our 7C2L in action. Thank you for being with us today. We are on YouTube Live, and so if you are following along and watching the conversation live because you wanted to tune in and see Leslie or see Micah this morning, you can chat in the chat feature below the video. I also encourage you to give it a like, right? Thumbs up and subscribe to LSR7 ITS YouTube channel here. This week's theme, really, that you can see is connected to students. And so we brought in a couple of administrators because you guys did some unique things to really engage your support staff in terms of creating that connection and that establishing that with students via our LMS of Schoology. And so a big focus, since we were in fourth quarter when virtual learning hit, a big focus was maintaining relationships and really checking in on kids to make sure that they're okay. I think it's super important that our students be able to see our faces, even when we don't always see theirs, but they know that we're making the effort to engage them in relationship. And so each of you guys did some phenomenal work with regard to that. I'm excited to dig into it today. So I'm going to toss it over to Jeff for our first question. All right. Here's the first question, I guess, officially here. Leslie, I'm going to start with you. So be thinking as I'm talking here. Okay. During virtual learning, each one of you guys, Micah and Leslie, you guys each took a very unique approach to using Schoology to keep both yourselves as well as the staff members connected to each other, but also to students in your buildings. So each of you just take a moment. We'll start with you, Leslie. Please share about your experience. What is it that you did that you'd like other administrators to hear right now about you did to help you guys stay connected to your students?
Okay. Well, one of the things that came to mind for me when we talked about staying connected with our students, and John, you're right. You said that we wanted to check in with students and make sure that their social, emotional well-being was good to go. That was our number one priority. And so what we did at Underwood, it was totally exploratory to begin with, was something called Eagles Connect. And so we were trying to figure out what platform could we use. There was Google Meets, Google Hangouts, and a couple others that we were, and Schoology, but we were trying to make it work. And so I initially started with, I think, was it Google Meet, John, or Google Hangouts? Something I put in the calendar. I'm a dabbler, so I may not be using the correct terminology. And so I usually go to John, and John's like, oh, well, tell me what you're thinking. I can tell you what you're doing. So,
you were using Meet initially, Leslie. Yep, you're correct.
So when we started using Meet, what we found out was that it wasn't as secure. And that was really our number one priority. And so I reached out to John. I said, hey, John, this is my idea, and this is what I want to be able to do. Can you help me with this? And that's when I said John and I had a nice little mini lesson. And so John walked me through, and he said, tell me what you want to do. And I said, I want the adults to connect with the students, but I just want that to be a private conversation between the adult and the student. And so without the student being able to go back into the link later on. So we needed to keep the security in there as well. And so John said the best format was to utilize Schoology Conferences. And so within our building, we set up, I don't know if you're in there, John. Looks like you are in there. So as you can see on the screen is our Eagle Connect screen. And so the first screen that you'll see over here, it's within each student's Schoology classroom folder, we put a link in there for that student. And we probably said, Mrs. Mott, Tuesdays, connect. And so that student would click on that link and it would take them directly to this page here, which gives them directions on how to join the conference. Now, initially our students, we had a lot of younger students, so we had to walk them through it with their parent on the line. There were just directions to show them how to access the folder. And if you see this big arrow, it says, hey, click over here to this arrow that says conferences. And so we tried to make it as student friendly as we possibly could. And so once they were able to locate the conferences button, then they were able to click within their Eagles Connect page and find their name and the adult that they would connect with and the time. And this was totally managed by the adult. And that just allowed the student within the secure platform that we already had to be able to connect with one or two adults and just to have that social emotional connection. It was truly well worth it. You know, we had individual students and then students within families, and sometimes the siblings would join in on the other siblings' conferences. So we would just have a little mini meeting within whoever's scheduled conference it was. But it was just really all about connecting with our students. And so that's one of the things that come to mind for me.
Leslie, that's fantastic. I just know that those connections between our families, the connections within our communities are so important. And I appreciate you taking that time to figure out, first off, security, but then also granting access. You know, when we talk about something that's, you know, new to someone, I really need someone to either hold my hand to do it or to walk me through it or to make such amazing instructions that it's going to be clear to me. We're dealing with families and students that this may be brand new to them, and creating pages that are very direct and easy to work with, I think can really, really help ease that tension in a very stressful time. John?
Before you shift to Micah, Jeff, I just wanted to add and brag on Underwood just a little bit here. It was about mid-April whenever they got this social emotional connection of Eagle Connect rolling. And in about a month between then and mid-May, I counted last night. They had 91 completed conferences with individual students. And
oh, wow.
I know, right? And that was support staff meeting with students one-on-one to check in on them. And I just think that's really cool, that effort that you guys put into to make that connection to students. So
what I love about that is that every single person in your school had a role. You know, we were connecting. It wasn't just teachers doing this thing, but it was the entire group coming together. And I love that, because in a time where we sometimes hear the term, we got this, or we're in this together, it's fantastic seeing everyone working together to do this. I'm going to toss it over to Micah. Micah, your school did some unique things in trying to figure out how to make these connections to students. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, for me, it was a very big struggle when we went all virtual after spring break. I believe that I am a personable person, and I want every student that walks into Meadow Lane or whatever building I'm working in to know that I care about them deeply and that I love them. And so when we get virtual, it's a lot more difficult to make that happen. So as Corey said, I've taught all the way from kindergarten to 7th grade, and I've also worked in a high school as an assistant principal as well. And kids are the same, K through 12. And I really think that they want to know that they are cared for and that there are people that care for them. So my approach, K through 12, has always been the same. I want to greet every kid if I know their name. I want to greet them by their name. Some sort of physical interaction, and let them know that they are cared for no matter where they're coming from. I usually end my announcements when we are actually at school, whether you rode the bus, whether you walked, whether you're dropped off by your mom, your dad, your auntie, your uncle, whomever it is. If nobody told you that they loved you this morning, Mr. Fritz loves you very much, and they're very glad for you to be at school today. And I don't think much about it. That's how I deeply feel about each one of our students, whether I know them personally or not. So when we went virtual, I felt very disconnected with the staff, with the students, with everybody. And I just had this longing to say, hey, I just want you to know that you are loved and that there are people here, whether we can see you or be around you or physically be in the same room with you. And so just started posting what I would normally do with a morning message in the morning to let them know those pieces. Did it virtually. That's actually at my mom and my pop's house because my internet is terrible. So I had to go to their house usually in the morning, and I got 4 children of my own. And I always think I've got 4 school-age children. This is how I want my kids greeted when they show up in the morning. Not every morning starts off great for my second oldest. She usually likes to fight with her mom in the morning about what she's going to wear. So I know kids are trying to figure those pieces out. So as I met with my support staff, just recognizing that these are people that kids have a deep connection with, whether it be our nurse or our behavior interventionist. And we are fortunate at Meadow Lane that not only is our classroom staff amazing and incredible, our support staff, I'd take them over anybody else in the country. Honestly, they are there for kids, and it was very hard for them to not connect with them, and it's still very hard for them to not connect with, to not know what's going on at home. When they're in our building, we can kind of gauge and figure it out, but when we can't see them walk into our building, it's hard for us to figure out what's going on. So I just approached the idea with them and just said, hey, if you're interested in sharing a video, a morning announcement video, I would love for you to do it. I love doing it. It was like my favorite thing to do during our virtual learning was to record the videos, but I wanted them to be able to share the love as well, and for kids to be able to see their faces. I know this is Miss Green here, who is just incredible. Leslie is fantastic with our kids and absolutely adores them, and the students feel the same way about her. So when I threw that out, we had a handful of support staff who wanted to engage in that process as well. And so the question was, well, what do you want in the video? And my answer was, whatever you want to do, whatever you need to do to feel connected. I think when we allow our staffs as administrators, and Leslie, Mott, and I have talked about this as well, the more that we can empower our staff, the better we are as a building, the better our students are. And so I just said, I would love for you, here are the birthdays. So I would give the teachers or the support staff the announcements or the birthdays that were coming up a couple days in advance, and they could kind of do whatever they wanted with it. So Miss Orr, our nurse, did an announcement as well. She wanted to do the Pledge of Allegiance, so she did it that way. The only thing we wanted to make sure that was hit was the birthdays, because I had some parents reach out after a little while like, hey, my son or daughter, you miss me? And it made me realize how much that kids really enjoy that and need that in their life. And I think about it as a summer birthday myself as a kid. My birthday was never called. And so just being able to honor kids with that really helped me feel connected and the kids as well.
Micah, I love all those things you're saying. You're talking about not only just really meeting the students and with their needs and where they're with simple, small things, but also involving and empowering the staff. I mean, that's a powerful thing, because who knows who that student has made a connection with, what adult it was. It may be the principal, which that's fantastic, but it might be some of those other amazing staff members that maybe are underutilized in some of these platforms. They're not a classroom teacher, so where is their role? How do we engage them and help them with it? So with that, thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to toss this over to Corey, who seems like she might be in the dark, which means my lights might be turning off soon too. So here we go, Corey.
Yes. And I have no windows, so I'm working off my phone flashlight here. And, the key, as we all know, forming those relationships, and I think you all both highlighted that in your experience through virtual learning, is we kind of shift and think about starting a new school year. And prior to this time of adjustment in education, we all know that setting that standard and getting those procedures and really setting our learners up for success with procedures and routines in a classroom is so important. What would you suggest that teachers think about as they set up a virtual scenario for their kids, not knowing exactly what our fall brings here for us, and that we might be in a blended experience of learning, or we might be in a complete virtual experience again? What would you suggest teachers kind of think through with that mindset of procedures and routines at the beginning of a school year? Micah, would you mind sharing first?
No, not at all. Like I said, I've got 4 kiddos of my own, and we experience, my wife and I, what it looks like to live through this, and really understanding the uncomfortableness that comes with that, and just being cognizant of what is it that kids really need during this time, and how can we also not only give them what they need socially, emotionally, but push them academically as well. I know that my eldest wasn't virtually connected a whole lot with his class, and the times that he was, it was incredible to watch his face light up to be able to see his friends and things like that. And so for somebody who talks a lot, myself, is that as a teacher, just encouraging them to set boundaries and parameters for the class, so that everybody can be heard in the class as well. So you brought up, Corey, what do we share with teachers in these instances? And I know that we're going to be engaging in this process over the next couple of weeks, preparing our staff for that. Is my encouragement to them would to say the boundaries allow kids to move freely within the rules, essentially. So allowing them to know what the rules are. My pop used to say, tell me the rules and then I'll play the game. Let's not play the game and then figure it out the rules as we go. Let's tell me the rules and then I'll play. And so creating those boundaries for a classroom virtually may seem strict or not kind, or, hey, I don't really care about my kids. But really, I think it shows deep connectedness with the students in the class by saying, here's the time limit. I'm setting a time limit not to cut you off, but to let you know you need to be concise with your thinking and be concise with what you want to share. For someone who could ramble on and on and on and likes the sound of my own voice, and I would just own that, allowing students, for all of them to share what's going on, especially if they have other siblings in their household that they may not get the opportunity to share, and their classroom environment is the only place where they get to share that, making sure that equity of voice is heard within every classroom. So encouraging teachers, what do you want it to look like and what do you want it to sound like, and really navigating through those virtual pieces with it.
Yeah, those boundaries are so essential, no matter whether we're face-to-face in a classroom or online. Every child deserves to have their voice heard.
Yeah.
Leslie, what about you? What would you suggest?
Well, when I think about establishing your digital classroom from your face-to-face classroom, I see it all one and the same. I see it as a sense of community, just like what Micah has been saying all along. We have to have structures in place or a framework for which everyone knows this is how we're going to play the game, or this is how we're going to do business. But first and foremost for me is that within this framework, we have to have a sense of community. We have to have a sense of belonging. As a teacher in my classroom, I'm at the forefront. I'm on the front line. So therefore, it's important for me to know who my learners are. I have some that will thrive in this digital environment, and I have some that will thrive in face-to-face. Me as the classroom leader, I have to know those things, and then I have to establish that framework, not a framework that means just for Leslie, but it's for the entire community to be able to thrive within. So therefore, when I'm setting those boundaries or setting those expectations or defining those, I want to define those and keep those in alignment as what I do in the digital framework or the virtual framework. Is it going to be similar to what we do in the face-to-face? And so once our students know what that framework is and we are a part of that process, then I think we're going to be able to be successful within that. So for me, building that sense of community is first and foremost, and then defining it together, but not in isolation or solo sphere. That's a new word I made up, Micah. But no, I want us to do all of this together. And that way, everyone will have the access to what it is that he or she is going to need, and being able to know that everyone's access in the virtual world is not going to be the same, or it's not going to be equitable across the board. I could have, Mike over here who has access to everything, but then I also have Joseph over here who may not necessarily have access to that. So I have to remember that and keep that at the forefront as well.
Yeah, thank you for all your clarity there. And really, I think bringing that all together, just being so intentional, being intentional about what we do in a digital environment, the same that we would in a face-to-face environment. And really, I feel like teachers might be most of us are masters at that at the beginning of a school year, being intentional about what we do to set up, doing that same community building, boundary setting in a virtual experience as well.
Absolutely.
John.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback off that. Equity is equity, whether you're face-to-face or virtual. And it's kind of a goal that we continue to strive for, right? To support every single learner in the way they need to be supported. I'm just curious, as I hear you guys talk, Leslie and Micah, what tips might you have for administrators starting this school year, reflecting on the experiences you had this past spring, maybe even thinking, okay, if we're going to be blended, or we're certainly going to have students online in our own district to start this next school year, what tips would you give to other administrators in terms of operating within an LMS like Schoology?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, and I hope it's okay, I go here first, Leslie, we'll see, is don't just give students worksheets on a computer. That is my biggest pet peeve. Is I really work hard at anything that we do as a staff and as a building, that it's going to be of value. We're not just going to have a meeting to have a meeting. We're not just going to do work to do work. And as an administrator, I try to honor that time with staff, hopefully to set the example that that's what I would prefer to see from you with your students as well. Don't just give kids worksheets to do busy work. I think we should be well past that, that it needs to be meaningful. Students need to be engaged with it. So thinking of the SAMR model, is it just substituting what you're already doing? Because if it is, then it's not worth their time and it's not worth your time. So use your time wisely with what you are going to give them. And that is my biggest push as we engage and going into the fall, is how can I challenge myself to not, that's an easy excuse to be able, well, I can just give them this. Well, what can I do as an administrator to support a teacher who is struggling with that? And have I created the community with my staff for them to say, I don't know what to do? Because that's what I hope our kids are doing, are asking our students, or our students are asking our teachers with humility, saying, I don't know what to do and I need help, and asking out, and they're able to figure out an answer. And so I think as administrators, we have to model that and say, well, you know what, I don't know either. And I think you've heard Leslie and I say enough already. We went to John with probably really silly things that he knows, but he knows more than us on this. So that's okay. So allowing that community to be built. So what are teachers doing to build that community when there are going to be situations where students have no idea what's going on, or it's mindless or not engaging at all? How can they reach out and say, I need something different to feed me academically or emotionally to make that happen? Leslie?
Yeah. Well, I think you've said it in a nutshell, Micah. But just some things that I was thinking of over the course of us going to this virtual environment, even throughout the summer, is what are some things that I myself that can help me moving into the upcoming school year. But I initially came with 3 points, but just in talking through this, I came up with one other point, which is really important, is basically be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Or if you're not there, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if you don't take anything else away from what we've talked about here, that's the number one thing, is just get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because there's a lot of unknown out there. Within this environment that we're going into, the unknown, know your limitations. I'll be honest with you, I'm not as tech savvy as I may seem, and I always go to the experts. My husband's a tech guy at home. I say, if something breaks, you fix it. And then I'll dabble with it and figure it out on my own. But if you ask me what I did, I could probably say, oh, I really don't know, but let me figure it out again. So that's just what I do. With knowing your limitations, I always say focus on less. Less is more, but go deeper with the less. And then leverage your resources. So yes, I leverage John, and I'm sure if Jeff or Corey, you guys were on my team, I would be leveraging you as well. But even within my building, I leverage my building team. Nicole Nolan, big shout out to her. I said, hey, I'm moving us back over into a Schoology course instead of a Schoology group. Are you going to be there to help me through it? And she's like, yeah, we'll just go ahead and do it together. So leverage your resources that you have and become familiar with their platform. And then I was already speaking to it, just seek out your support. Use your resources. We have a lot of valuable resources here within Lee Summit R7. And Jeff, John, Corey, you guys are 3 of the ones that I know, but I know there's more of us on this team. So therefore leverage, seek those resources. We don't know everything, but I know that you do. And so you guys can get us to where we need to be. But more importantly, what Micah had already mentioned, and what I mentioned, is get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Hey, and I can I also say one more thing? I'm sorry, I'm going to say it either way, I guess. Maybe you can edit. Well, we're live, so I guess you can't edit it out. So it's also something that I know that a conversation that'll come up with our staff, and Leslie, probably with your staff, and probably a lot of staffs, hopefully, is boundaries. And I know that we talked about boundaries with students, but also encouraging staff to set boundaries as well. It can be very easy that if you're at home, the email comes in from a student, whatever the case may be. It's to set boundaries and to take care of yourself. It's very hard. It's the old airplane example, you need to put your mask on before you can help somebody else. And so challenging staff members to take care of themselves, their families, in order to do the best that they can with others. When you're at work from 8 to 4 or 6 to 4, whatever time you show up, it's very easy to say, I'm at work, I'm going to work really hard, I'm here for the students, and then I go home and now I'm a dad and I'm a husband and I'm going to do that. When you're at home and it's virtual, and students also are experiencing that, making sure that they learn healthy boundaries to set, this is when I'm going to do my homework, this is when I'm going to check in. And if teachers can model that for kids, I think we have a great opportunity to help students learn, those soft skills of learning time management and different things like that, if we model it well. If we don't model it well, they're going to learn from us as well. So
you too. I didn't expect to cry in a Schoology conference on a YouTube Live, but I'm so thankful the quality of administrators we have here in this district. You guys are certainly cream of the crop and an example of the fine leadership we have. Hearing you speak to setting boundaries for staff, being vulnerable as a learner, knowing your own limitations and leveraging resources, that is such great modeling for our teachers. And I think that's a big part of your job, is being that lead learner and really showing that aspect of who you are as an educator so that your staff takes on those characteristics. And ultimately, if we have staff modeling those characteristics as well, that's going to be pervasive down to the students as well. And so you guys, thank you for sharing those tips. I really appreciate you having been on here. And I'm going to toss it to Corey, or Jeff now, I believe.
Yeah, I'll do some wrap up. Man, I wish this show, we've already gone on about 31, 32 minutes, somewhere in there. I wish we could go on for hours and hours, and I think we have enough content. We've just barely scratched the surface on some of the stuff. We've talked about, knowing your role as a model for our teachers, for other administrators, and for our students, and how important that is. We've talked about, modeling with parents. We've worked on being student focused, student centered, being friendly, being able to be personable with. Even though we're in a virtual environment, how do we become personable? How do we, really encourage each other and build one another up as we go through this process? We talked about building a sense of community, a sense of belonging. I think I heard the word solo sphere in there. I think I need a more definition on that, but I think that's fantastic. And whether we're in face-to-face environment, whether we're virtual, whether we're online, really connecting and making those connections and setting up those boundaries, those norms, that structure, so that our students can thrive. We've talked about being comfortable, not being comfortable, being comfortable with uncomfortableness. And I think that's really important for us as we know our limitations, as we go to those experts, as we leverage other people, as we focus on depth and quality over just doing stuff. And I think there was so much more that we could talk about, but those are some fantastic points. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with others as we really strive as a goal to be connected with our students.
Thanks, Jeff. And today, thank you both for pointing out so much about leaning on the expertise of others. And we invite all our 7 staff, whether classroom teachers, administrators, the nurse, I think you mentioned that, building relationships, any staff member that wants to engage with us in our Schoology discussions through the Lee Summit Schoology Educators group. There you can find our micro courses wrapped around this theme, connected to students this week. We invite anybody to join there and have a conversation and lean on that expertise of one another.
Thanks, Corey. And to wrap up, if you're not even a part of the Lee Summit R7 community, but you've stumbled across one of these YouTube live sessions, you've seen our tweets at hashtag R7C2L on Twitter, we would encourage you to participate in this conversation, comment on the video, leave a comment on one of our posts. We are all as educators in this together, and we find ourselves in some challenging times right now. And that's been the purpose of this hashtag R7C2L in action this summer, is to talk about our journey using technology to make connections all throughout the learning, whether it be face-to-face or virtual. So Leslie, Micah, once more, thank you so much for coming on and using your valuable time this morning to share some of your knowledge with us and with everyone watching this. For everybody on the Lee Summit Instructional Technology staff, thanks for joining, and stay connected to the students. Bye, everybody.